We are ready.
Great, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Finance and Claims Committee of the Norwalk Common Council for today, January 9th, 2025 at 7:01 p.m. Before I start with the roll call, I'd just like to wish everyone a happy new year and hope you have a safe, enjoyable, healthy, prosperous, all those good words going into 2025. Today's roll call, we have Councilmember Jim Frayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for the record, if you can say you're here, because I don't see anyone taking minutes, so they might look at the recording. Councilmember Doug Sutton.
Present.
Councilmember Johan Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Heather Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Ann Wennerstrand.
Here.
And myself, Councilmember Greg Burnett, so we have a quorum. Moving on to item 3 in the agenda, which is the acceptance of the minutes from the regular meeting of December 12th, 2024. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just speaking of spelling of last name, my last name is W-E-N-N-E-R, not W-I-N-N-E-R. So I just wanted to note that.
Great, thank you. Also, additional changes to the minutes, if we can correct the spelling throughout the minutes for Sharon Connors. It's C-O-N-N-E-R-S. We try to get her to change it to the O, but that was voted down. So if we can have that correction made. Also on page 4, the third item down where it says Mr. Gorman reported the Common Council approved a contract, it should state, with the municipal tax services, and the M, the T, and the S should be capitalized because it's the name of an entity. And also in the second sentence where it says they also approved a contract to work with Tyler Technologies for commercial property valuation, we should insert that to make it accurate. And then finally on page 7, the fourth paragraph down, the last sentence, we can omit that sentence that says they are also involved with Connecticut assessment collections. Just omit that sentence, please. Any other additional deletions or changes? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the minutes with the necessary corrections, you can raise your hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4, which is public participation. We did not receive any emails related to any items on the agenda prior to the meeting. If anyone has who dialed in and would like to speak, if you could raise your hand and we will acknowledge you. I see one hand raised.
Yes, there is one attendee, Diane Loricella.
Good evening, Diane.
Good evening, Chair Burnett and council, as well as staff. Happy New Year to you. Looking forward to a challenging year again. For the record,
Diane,
my name
you have
is...
3 minutes. Thank you.
Take back my time for that.
Anyway, yes. 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Thank you so much. My last name is so long, I should get credit for that too. But anyway, for the record, my name is Diane Loricella, 21 Little Fox Lane. Tonight, of course, Finance and Claims mission is to demonstrably and with great strategy and caution spend our finances, plan for finances, etc. The other night, the Land Use and Building Management Committee took a look at your item, which is item under new business 7A1 and A2 under item A, having to do with special capital appropriation in A1 and free balance, uh, reduction in A2. Tonight, I wanted to ask this particular committee of the council to request for a heck of a lot more details about why $2,450,000 should be just exchanged or thrown into the Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main. I did listen to the reasoning last night on land use and building management. I didn't hear a lot of people questioning the amount and whether it was truly needed. I do know lately that this council has been moving around capital funds versus operating funds. And I know for a fact that some of our departments are running at low staffing on things like enforcement of public health issues that are important, waste management issues that are important. And so I say that I'm not sure that just because Cranberry School Improvement Project overestimated their budget, and I'm glad there's some left over, that it should automatically be given to this important project, which I'm supportive of, without more clarity and really realizing, is this going to be the right way to spend this money? The way it was treated was, oh, we don't have to spend any extra money, do we? And that should not be the question of this committee. And it should not have been the question of the Land Use and Building Management Committee last night. I do think that there needs to be itemization as to why. I think more money should be given to the general fund and then move some of it into operating budget for things like lead inspection in the health department. It's needed. It was needed last time, and they were told they can't have a full-time person. I do think, lastly, that I've heard the usual excuse given about solar, that maybe solar will be allowed on this recreation center. That has to stop. That thinking, that lack of planning, that myopic look at solar on public buildings has to stop. So with that, I just say, please vote no on a general exchange of $2,450,000, and instead suggest that with that extra money in Cranberry, that goes back to general fund, and that the recreation center does with less, like the rest of us in town. We do with less money when we don't have it. This is an excessive amount overage of what was originally planned for an important project, but also a project that doesn't include making our own electricity. Yet again, thank you for your time, and I hope you will take my thoughts seriously.
Thank you, Diane. Do we have anyone else that has their hand raised that wishes to speak? Okay, if there's no one else, I will close public participation and we'll move on to item 5, which is the reports. And we'll begin with item A, which is the Oak Hills Park Authority monthly financial statements for November 2024. We have Denise Brown from Oak Hills Park Authority to give us the update.
Good evening, Mr. Burnett and the council. Nice to see everybody for the new year. So for the reports for tonight for November, obviously that was really the last good operating month that we had for the park. We did have quite a bit of rain, but we came out pretty good for the end of the month. What we had budgeted was around $326,000 of net operating income, but we actually came in with about $479,000. So we were $153,000 up from what we had budgeted for net operating income, which is actually a wonderful thing to have an extra surplus of money. And the cash balance for the end of the month of November was about $843,000, which does include the investment money that we have. So that's where we stand at the moment for the end of November, which will change because the park is basically closed for December, for January, for February. So we will be, cutting into that money and using that for the next 3 months until things start to pick up slowly in March, and then hopefully again in April when we start our season. We did pay 99,000 to the city towards our debt, which includes the 1%, which was about $24,000 from the annual audit. So that we had paid to the city, I think just before the end of the 2024 season. And so now that we're going into December and November, everything is quiet. We do have maintenance with our superintendent and his staff. And we have, regular operating procedures to do for, regular, just keeping the place up and running. The restaurant has launched, I think I had mentioned this last time, but they do have new hours. They're open from Wednesday to Sunday. So they're launching also a music on Saturday nights and Sundays around 4 o'clock. They're introducing some jazz and some rock and roll. I did go to one of their first shows, or their first, at the beginning of the year, they had one brand new session for introducing the music, and it was quite enjoyable. And they've introduced a better menu. They have a nice brunch. So their hours are Wednesday through Sunday, and I believe they open at 11, and weekends they close around 9. And let's see, we completed the first half of the bunker project. It went very well. Jim Shell is very pleased with the way everything happened. And so we plan on initiating the second half of the bunker project in the fall of 2025. And those are basically the updates at the moment for towards the end of November. Does anybody have any questions?
Councilmember Jim Frere.
Happy New Year, Denise. Just a clarification. You mentioned that you're essentially closed in January, February. The park is not closed. It's just kind of slow, is it? It's not closed to you can go out. If there's no snow out there, I should say, you can go out there, right?
Well, we do have some very avid golfers that will come out and play. The carts are put away for the winter, so they do have to walk the course. So we are open. The golf shop is open. They do take whatever reservations will come in. And so you're correct that we do have some golf going on, but obviously it's a weather related.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, no, there's a lot of nuts out there that will go out and play in the snow. But and the other thing was, I'm really happy to hear about the restaurant with more regular hours and all that. Are they doing anything? Are they doing any advertising? I don't see any advertising anywhere, like in the hour or anything like that, advertising the fact that they're going to be open. It's hard to get people if you don't know about it.
Well, the only advertising that I've seen so far is that they do it through the Oak Hills website where they send out blasts. They actually just send out a blast today. I have not actually seen the advertising in the Norwalk Hour myself. So that would
do one right now.
I'm sorry.
You want to do one right now? Or you already done it?
I already kind of gave my spill, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's something that we will talk with them about. It would be nice if they did promote it through the city newspaper. And I think that would help them.
I will actually say I saw a Facebook post just the other day with the menu, and there were quite a few viewers that had seen it prior to myself receiving it. So it is on social media with the menu and the hours. So
was that for the city of Norwalk or was that for the Odean's Facebook page?
No, I can't recall who actually posted it, but I don't think it was from the city of Norwalk. It might have been an individual who was just posting it and promoting that it was a good place to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
Good. Denise, are there any, I know it's tough during the cold months to do any type of capital improvements, but are there any, is there any activity planned during the months when there's less use of the course?
No, they really just maintain the course the best they can through the winter months. But it's really hard to do any improvements with the ground being so hard. That's why they tried to finish the bunker project before the winter really set in, which is what they had completed the end of November into the beginning of December. So, but as far as any kind of capital improvements, I mean, we might do some things with our heating system and things like that, interior, but nothing else has been really planned right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And I'd like to thank you for moving Oak Hills up to the beginning of the agenda. It's very nice. Appreciate that.
It's a new year, new time.
It's a new year. Thank you.
Great. If there's no other questions or comments for Denise, thank you for the update, and we look forward to an update in February.
Thank you very much. Good night.
All right.
Right.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item B under reports, which is our tax assessor, Paul Gorman. Over to you, Paul.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everyone. And again, reiterate what Greg said earlier, Happy New Year and hope for a really good one this year. So things going on in the assessor's office. Currently, obviously, we're working towards the end of the month where we will sign the grand list, trying to get everything that we possibly can in before the end of the month so that the grand list will be at the peak of its potential to help out with what's going to be, what I'm told, a fairly tough year coming up. The other main things that we're working on right now, Lisa and her team just issued out the supplemental bills, which have inspired a rash of phone calls of all the people that got rid of those cars shortly after getting them. So we're doing a lot of bill adjustments for the supplemental bills, and we're putting the finishing touches of pricing and getting the car portion of the grand list for the 2024 grand list ready, which is a new and exciting challenge under the new state laws, where the cars are now being valued based on an MSRP with depreciation as opposed to valuation due to sales studies. So it'll be a whole new world when the bills go out in June, and with the new and improved lower car mill rate that we're going to experience, but we won't know what that will be until mill rates are set, and I believe we set them in May. Another initiative that we're going to have going on in the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending out the letters and application paperwork to all our elderly that are on the program that are due for renewal, and to all those that have called over the course of the past year wanting to be having an opportunity to apply this coming year. So we'll be sending out applications to those people as well. And with the anticipation of the grand list being signed, we will also be anticipating a brisk February 1st through 20th for Board of Assessment Appeal sign up, because I've always anticipated that this year following the reval will probably be close to as busy as last year, maybe not as busy, but it's going to be busier than a normal off year. So the BAA is getting ramped up for that. That pretty much covers what's going on in our department. And also I almost forgot to mention, we are in the process of getting together with the people at MTS to put the final touches on getting that program started. Hopefully that meeting will be happening during the week of January 20th. And we are also put the other contract that we talked about last month, the getting the I's and T's crossed and dotted properly for the Tyler Technologies contract. Hopefully we'll have that figured out on Monday so that we can get Tyler in here before we sign the grand list so that they can review what they're being hired to review. That's tax assessor in a nutshell.
Great, thank you, Paul. Any questions for the tax assessor's office? Yes, Councilmember Jim Freya.
Paul, it sounds like you're getting to the finish line. Is there any indication of the breakdown between commercial and residential? Do you have an idea of whether we're seeing any movement back toward the commercial for the uh, for growth?
I won't have data like that until I issue the INEs in the spring that'll be due by June 1st. That'll be our first post reval batch of INEs that we'll be receiving. We didn't send them out last year. So we're going to start tracking them this year to see if we're seeing any kind of higher rates of occupancy or higher rates of leasable space value. But we don't have that just yet. That'll be something that is going to be worked on over the summer.
I'm sorry, forgive me, but what is an INE?
Oh, INE, income and expense statements.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's all income producing properties are sent an income and expense statement where they have to tell us who they have as tenants, how much that person's paying per month. Is it a per square foot thing? And then they tell us, they calculate out what their net operating income is by getting their gross operating income, and then they take out their eligible expenses. Their net operating income is what we utilize to then use a cap rate on it to
Right.
come up with a value.
Okay. And what about abatements? Do we have many commercial properties that have had abatements in the last year or two? Do we have an idea of how much we're going to contribute to the grand list based on those abatements that have expired or are expiring?
Are you talking about the enterprise zone
Yeah.
program? There's there's only one company, one building coming off of it after the 2023 year. And that building is negligible in value. Myself, Jared, and one of my employees, Neil Binder, who's my tech guru with Excel, we've just recently done a really nice spreadsheet that we might be able to provide some better numbers in the coming months after the grand list is signed of where we stand at, like individually how much each property is being discounted this year and how long it's going to take for them to come off. I give you an example. 123 Water Street's an example. It's a building that's going into its 4th year. So it's only going to have a 40% reduction, but a building like 123 Water Street's a apartment building down in Sono. Just outside of Sono on 320 Wilson Ave, that's a public storage building. That's going into its 2nd year and it's 100% off of the building. But I don't have any hard and fast numbers other than I know that for the 2024 grand list, there's one very small building over on Wilson Ave coming off, but that's a $500,000 building, or $500,000 assessment, appraised value. The building's only a few $100,000. So it's kind of a blip compared to the big apartment buildings that are on there. We brought on a brand new apartment building on Chestnut Street last year. There's another new one coming on this year at 10 Monroe, which happens to be side by side with 11 Chestnut. I mean, because there's not enough apartments here in Norwalk. And we have a couple other minor projects that are coming online. We've got a couple of things that are coming into the program for 2024, but they haven't been finalized yet.
So you expect that the commercial side of the grand list to grow this year?
Oh yeah, I mean even with things being given away, we have other projects that are coming online that are just full on. Like Wegmans is coming
Right.
on. It's not full value yet because on October 1st it wasn't completed, but I believe their anticipated opening date is sometime next month. So they'll be at about a 60% value for October 1, and then they'll get prorated on to the grand list for February. The only thing that's different in this environment as opposed to a normal environment is because of the phase in, construction increases also get phased in.
Right.
So under normal circumstances, if somebody were to finish a building on April 1st and it was $1 million increase, we would prorate on $500,000 of taxable dollars because it's a half a year. In this case, that $1 million will get prorated on at a lesser number, and then the rest of that will get spread out over the other 3 years of the phase-in that's remaining. So we're not only are we getting the market value changes from the reval slower from the phase-in, but we're also getting any construction increases slower due to the phase-in. So even Wegmans coming online, let's just say it's $100 million building, and then let's just say it was done on October 1st, that 100 million is going to get spread out over 3 years.
But as we continue on through the phase in, we only have we'll have eventually 2 years and then 1 year, right?
Right,
So
26.
if we were
26 we're
doing,
at full value.
right. All right. So the time that we're going to be phasing in is going to gradually be less and less, right?
Correct.
Okay. So this year being the second year of the phase in, it's not as onerous as it was the first year.
In what regard do you mean that? As far as for construction?
If for new construction, you're only going to, whereas you would only take maybe 1/5, or you could defer 4/5. Now you're going to defer 3/5, I guess it is.
Right, yeah.
Three-
The amount that's getting deferred each year will become less, yes.
Exactly. So that's a positive thing. As we work our way through this phase in, we're going to
Right.
eventually get better. So bottom line is that we do expect that our commercial grand list is going to grow, but at this point, you don't have any good ideas as to what value that is or how much it'll grow. And as a percentage of the overall, as we dropped, last year we looked at moving a lot of grand list or the effective grand list go on the commercial side going down and assuming the tax burden on the residential side. What I'm trying to get to is that going to be mitigated to a certain extent this year? So in other words, is commercial going to start to assume a greater portion of that, our total tax burden this year?
Well, to a degree, yes, because the amount of money being added to the grand list, and I want to talk about this in a non-phase-in type of way, only because the phase-in
keep it simple.
adds so much to the grand list as it is.
Right.
But in general terms, yes, we're adding a Wegmans, we're adding a 467 West Avenue in part. The commercial base is going to have much larger amounts of construction value increase. But to your original question about is it shifting back, that's going to require, that's not only going to require that the commercial construction is better, but it's going to require that the commercial occupancy is better and the commercial rates are better. And that's not something we'll ever know until 2028. Like I said, with the income and expense statements coming in, we'll be able to start tracking if it looks like it's getting better by taking the pulse of the commercial base with the yearly submission.
Right.
So,
okay.
So it'll be kind of negligible when you're doing increases simply due to construction and renovation, but it will still lean more towards commercial than it did towards residential, but not enough for it to be a true relief, I don't believe.
Well, $500,000 here, $1 million there.
Yeah, anything helps.
We're talking about real money pretty soon.
Yep.
Okay, good. That's encouraging.
Do we have any other questions or comments for the tax assessor? One question that I have, Paul, related to going back to the comments related to the motor vehicle, the change in the tax assessment for that. Do we, well, I don't know if you have the data or in the position to respond to this, but do we anticipate that most registered vehicles will see an increase, or it's too early to tell?
It's too early to tell because like I'll use the person that I talked to on the phone this morning. Because they just had a supplemental car bill, and I then took a look at what their 2024 basis is going to be. Their actual value from the MSRP/depreciation program has actually got a slightly higher value to it. But because of the mill rate decrease we're going to experience from the new law saying that we can only go as high as our lowest district, which will more than likely, I'm assuming, be row 8 and again, the District 6, we're going to have to mirror that mill rate for our cars. We're going to be seeing about a 10 or so point drop to the mill rate from cars. So even if your value is a little bit higher under the depreciation schedule than it was under the sales schedule, your tax bill is going to be considerably less. On a whole, we're down about 2,000 cars, and we're down from last year's car value for the portion of the grand list probably by about 15 to 18%. So overall, I believe that the MSRP pricing is going to impact people in a positive fashion in the sense that the values are going down. It's just not across the board. That's my take. And that's what other assessors have also said in meetings that I've attended. Now, that being said, okay, the person had a $750 tax bill last year and they've got a $525 tax bill this year. Multiply that by 77,000 cars and you come up with your shortage, and that shortage gets made up on something else, on the real estate. And not having the money coming from pot A is going to make it have to come out of pot B. It's just a balancing act. Unless, as I always say to all the people that call me, unless we spend less money. And I'm not advocating spending less money or spending more money. I'm just saying you all know how the formula works. We're having less come in on cars because of the changes, and then it gets offset. Hopefully that long-winded response answered your question.
Yeah, yes, it did. Yes, it did. And it also explained reality that we need to do even more of a closer look at budgeting, because as you indicated, we might have less revenue coming in from car tax.
And hopefully MTS will help with some of that. I mean, they're not going to be a godsend, like it's not going to make up the difference, but hopefully it makes up some of the difference.
Right. Okay, more to come. Thank you, Paul, for the update. Appreciate it, and we look forward to more information next month.
Okay, everybody have a great evening.
Great.
Thanks, Paul.
Moving on to item C on the under reports, which is the narrative on tax collection dated January 2025. And also we'll cover item D and E, which is the monthly tax collectors report dated December 2024, and the claims committee report dated January 2025. So over to Lisa B., our tax assessor, collector. I think I called Paul the collector. I don't know, but our tax collector, Lisa.
Thank you, Councilman Burnett. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. With your permission, I'd like to start with the claims because that's the simplest part of all of this. In your packet that you originally received, around about page 27, there are two claims that do require a vote from you. They are special requests by virtue of the dollar amount, which is in excess of $10,000. One of them is a sewer use adjustment that was done by the Water Pollution Control Authority to correct an erroneous billing that took place over the course of 2 grand list years for this property at 14 Mott Avenue. So that's one of them. And I had the paperwork with me in case you had further questions about it. But we bill, our division bills based upon what the Water Pollution Control Authority tells us to bill. And this was an adjustment that was made by Ralph Kolb, the senior environmental engineer, back in December. The other two special requests are compilations of motor vehicle adjustments of the type that the assessor was speaking of when individuals get rid of a vehicle. There are many, many leased motor vehicles in Norwalk, and this is the time of year when those leasing companies send their paperwork into the assessor and seek an adjustment on a bill that's already been paid. So there's multiple bills that were adjusted, and they were combined into these two fairly substantial special requests. So that's what that is. And I'm glad to answer any other questions you might have about the claims before, hoping you'll vote on them, and then I'll move to the other items.
Lisa, if you can, just for the purpose of our vote, provide the dollar amount for each of the 2 items.
Let me find it. I just have to get back to where I was. Hold on. It's
I
in-
think there were, for the lease adjustment, I think there was 2 items totaling like $20,000.
Was this the 29,262 for, no, that's the Toyota lease that's the Toyota lease trust. On Mott Avenue was 3,357.
No, there were 2.
There's one for 29,000 and another one for 10,000 for a Toyota.
The Toyota, the Mott Avenue one is actually 3357.48 plus 99.15.
Right.
The comment, because it's for the 2 grand list years, 2021 and 2022 grand list, and we broke them
Correct.
out for you. So that's the sewer use. The other ones, one is 29,262.15 and 10,497.77, both to Toyota
Toyota.
Lease Trust. And that's
Right.
in your packet, page 27.
Right.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you've heard the report of the Claims Committee for January 2025. We have 2 claims over $10,000 that we need to vote on. Do we have any questions related to the claims report? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the claims report and those 2 items, show by a raise of hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Moving right along, we finished our end of December reports today. And for that reason, that's why they didn't get emailed to you until today, the spreadsheet and then the narrative that I wrote. So with your indulgence, I'll review those, even though I apologize for having them to you so late the day of the meeting. But they do contain good news, which is that through the end of December, which is halfway through the fiscal year, the mid-year point, we were at 62.53%, which was actually ahead of where we were last year. We were also ahead with regard to sewer use, primarily because we got our bills out a little earlier this year than last year. This is one of the reasons why we like to get our bills out as soon as we can. We are now in the middle of the collection cycle. all is well. The last day to pay is Monday, February 3rd, because February 1st this year falls on a Saturday. So by law, we give our taxpayers until the next business day, which is Monday, February 3rd. Once the collection cycle is over, we start thinking about delinquent notices, past due notices. We intend to send those out in February. We'll file our lien continuing certificates by the second week of March, usually around the Ides of March is when we file our liens in Norwalk, and we're working on delinquent enforcement into the spring. I alluded to that in the narrative. We're working with the health department. If you have past due business personal property taxes, and we are able to identify you, the health department will not renew your health permit until you bring your, anything that's a year or more past due has to be brought current. That's by state law. And we're also filing what we call uniform commercial code liens with the Secretary of the State's office on past due business personal property accounts, again, in an effort to pursue enforcement and collection of those accounts. So overall, I think the collection is going fairly well. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions or comments for the tax collector related to the narrative?
There is one other thing I forgot to mention, and that is in about 2 months' time, the redemption period for our tax sale expires. We held the tax sale in September. It seems like it was just yesterday, but it was actually 4 months ago. So the owners of the properties that were sold have about 60 days to redeem their properties. Otherwise, on the 11th of March, which is a Tuesday, the day after the redemption period expires, we file deeds to those properties and they become the property of those who bid. So at present, we have 4 left. So potentially 4 properties will deed over. But if you recall, we started with 225 properties when we started working on the sale. And we were down to 7 on the day of the sale, and now we're down to 4. And this progression is a testament to my theory that tax sales work and that they are a very effective and efficient enforcement mechanism to compel taxpayers to pay their past due taxes. Because my purpose in holding the sale is not to transfer property, it's not to take property from one individual and distribute it to someone else. It's to compel people to pay what they owe so that the policymakers can make the difficult decisions like you were talking with when you were speaking with Paul Gorman about how can we try to keep taxes lower. One of the cardinal rules of tax collection is a high current and back collection rate enables the rate makers to set a lower mill rate because you can have less of an allowance for uncollected taxes. And that is what drives all of these activities that we undertake all year long. So that is the purpose of the tax sale. The tax sale is to collect revenue that is due to enable all of you to keep the mill rates as low as possible. But that deadline is fast approaching, so I'm going to do another mailing. We're not required by state law to do another one, a 60-day notice, but I'm going to do it anyway. And just remind those property owners that they have about 2 months to get that taken care of if they so choose.
Great, thank you. And I would just like to also add the success of the tax sale is directly related to having someone of your expertise and knowledge running the tax sale. Not every town has this level of expertise. So yes, it helps the budget, but it helps having someone who knows how to do the tax sales right here in Norwalk. So we truly appreciate your expertise in this.
Thank you. And my staff as well.
Yes, and
We all
the
pitch
entire team, right,
We
the
all-
entire
we all
team.
help. Everybody has a job.
Right, several departments pitched in to make it work successfully. So
Absolutely.
yes, kudos to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Great,
also,
good.
Just wanted,
Good.
one more point. I just
Oh, sure,
want to
sure.
thank Lisa, that you, now in the narrative, we have, if you look at 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, thank you for including now as a regular entry, the cannabis tax that is coming in. And now that we have 3 dispensaries online in Norwalk, hopefully we'll start to see some true dollars that we can reinvest.
Yes,
So thank you for concluding those numbers.
You're
Councilmember Jim Freya.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the tax sale. In the commentary that Lisa gave us today, she talks about how the original estimate for the collection, targeted collection, was $4.5 million, and then they wound up collecting $6.5 million directly on the tax sale. I think that's astounding. But Lisa, is that an underestimate of the 4.5, or how did we wind up collecting $2 million more than we thought we were going to collect?
I changed the criteria and included more properties as we got closer to the sale, because when we work on a sale, if the sale is going to be, like, say our next sale is going to be in the summer of 26, we'll start working on that sale the prior November. So we send out pre-sale letters long before the statute requires us to actually start the sale process. Usually the letters we send out pre-sale are to properties that owe multiple years already. And we'll give them a heads up and say, you're going to be included in the sale because of the fact that you owe 2 years, 3 years, or more back taxes. As we get closer in the spring and the administration is working on the budget, if they come to me and say, how much do you think you are going to bring in? Can you bring in a little bit more? I can say, tell me what you want to bring in and I can make it work. I will set the criteria to enable me to include properties to give you the yield you want. And that's what we did, because we needed to bring in more than the original amount. So I set the criteria for not so much number of years back, but the other criteria is a dollar amount. So I can set that dollar amount by state law to any amount we choose. In the past, it's been as high as $25,000 or as low as $10,000. So somewhere within that range, we'll get the amount that we want. And that is one of the beauties of the tax sale process, is that it is flexible in that way, that we can still have a sale that we can manage with a couple hundred properties, anywhere from 200 to 250, 260 properties. But depending on what the criteria is, we can give the city and the policymakers the revenue that they need to supplement the budget and try to keep the tax rates down.
So if I understand this right, is the 225 properties that were originally included in the sale would have brought us 4.5 million, but then there were more properties that you recognized that we could go after for back taxes that brought it up, that 225 may have gone up and helped us recognize another $2 million.
It didn't start with 225. It started with much fewer. And then
let's put it another way. Let's say there's 180 that represent the 4.5 million, but then when you got to 225, that represents the 6.5 million.
That is correct.
So, okay, so we probably should be saying that the 4.5 was really worth 180 properties. I'm just picking numbers out because I don't know what they are. However, as we got further into it, we were able to increase the properties up to 225, which we were able to add 45 more properties that garnered us another $2 million.
Correct.
Okay. I just think it's, I don't know about the flexibility that you talk about is kind of mysterious to me. How you would add 45 more properties. And then would that, all of those 225 properties have the same criteria for going into the sale? Or would you have 180 at one criteria and 45 at another criteria?
They all, ultimately, the criteria is the same for everybody, but it's going to be an either or. It won't be, it doesn't necessarily have to be either, both. It can be either you have a certain number of years back, which is usually 3 years back, regardless of the dollar amount. You could owe on a tiny strip of land. And if you owe 3 years back, even if all you owe is $700, you're in the sale. Garage unit,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
The other one is the one that we use more flexibility on, and we've gone as low as $10,000 and as high as 25. That was many, many years back when we first started. But that is where we do have the flexibility, and that's where we add our second batch of properties, because the official start of the sale doesn't happen until April or May. That's when we file our notices of sale. So between November, when we send out the first batch of letters, between November and when we file our notices the first week of May, we have a lot of time to try to make this work for us. And we can't make the sale too big either, because you have to have a title search done on all these properties. There's mailings, there's a lot of back office work that gets involved. So I never want to go above like 270 properties. That's the most we can really handle in-house. But we know that we have that flexibility, and we try to let people know ahead of time, you stand to be included in the sale. You need to take care of this now and not let it go until we actually file the notices. But of course, it doesn't always work out that way. But that's the flexibility. But the criteria is the criteria. And once we set a criteria, you have to pay the bill in full to be removed from the sale. So for example, if the cutoff is $12,000, you can't come in and pay and just get under the threshold and say, okay, I'm out of the sale. It doesn't work that way. You have to pay the whole bill. You have to pay all of it. Once the notices are filed, you can't just pay enough to think you're going to get under the threshold. And that is what allows us to get a lot of that money in. So you could theoretically have someone, and we've had this in the past, who owes a bill from January. They owe their second installment. They don't pay it. They're going to get a tax sale letter from me in May. Because if they owe $25,000 or $30,000, I don't want that sitting out there unpaid. I want to get that money in.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it almost seems a bit arbitrary. And I think if I understand what you're talking about, is that, in other words, if somebody owes $30,000 and doesn't pay their bill, so let's say the bill is $30,000, they don't pay it, and you go and then you put them up into the sale, they're probably going to pay it, because the taxes on the property is probably worth a lot of money if it's $30,000 in taxes, as opposed to somebody that owes you $50. Is it a big deal whether he pays that this year or next year? You give him some slack, and then after 3 years, it's then $30,000, and now we're going to put him into the tax sale. Is that the way we look at it?
I guess you could call it arbitrary, but the statute does give the tax collector the flexibility.
Well, let me not say, let me take back. I won't say it's arbitrary. It's kind of judgmental.
It's based upon what the city needs us to bring in. And that's in consultation with the director, the budget office, and so forth. In this past case, the chief of staff was involved as well. So they will give us, they will give us direction on where they want us to go. But ultimately, it's up to the tax collector. It's my decision on what I include in the sale. But I would also make sure everybody understands, we don't pick and choose. If you meet the criteria, you're in. So
So
whether-
there's no chance, so in other words, there's no chance of somebody who owes $100,000 and doesn't pay their bill this year. That $100,000 is they're gonna wind up in a tax sale, one or the other.
absolutely, yes.
Okay, so the high dollar values, the high delinquent taxes, I should say, would go into the tax sale before me, let's say, who owes, well, maybe not me, maybe, I would hope it's not me, but who owes maybe $10,000.
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for the tax collector? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Lisa, for the update. Much appreciated. And the all of the claims report will be reviewed and finalized at the next council meeting, which will be on Tuesday, January 14th.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
And don't forget to pay your taxes by February 3rd, please.
I'm definitely gonna pay mine.
Thank you.
Okay, you heard it. The word is out.
Freddie is paying his taxes this year.
Thank you, and we'll see you next month.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item F on the reports, the purchasing agent report on approved contracts listing. And we have our purchasing agent, Sharon Connors, with an E, to give us an update.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. Um, Purchasing Department or myself has reviewed 12 requests. On the report that was included in the agenda, the second to last item is duplicate of the third one from the top, just to give you a heads up. So the third one from the top is actually from a public bid solicitation. So out of the 12, we had 3 projects that went out for bid. The rest are related to state cooperative purchases, state contracts or cooperative purchases. 5 of them are which for vehicles, 1 is IT equipment, and then 3 of them are classed on, actually 2 are classed under other, and 1 item is consideration for standardization of equipment. So the correct total is $689,376.10. If we correct the report, removing the second to the last item, which is duplicate of the third from the top. So, any questions?
One question, Sharon, is this is reflects September through December, so these are
Correct.
quarterly updates.
Correct.
And we started at the beginning of the calendar year, correct?
Correct.
24.
Yep.
So just, you probably don't have it in front of you, and that's okay.
Mhm.
For the overall year, now that we're kind of at the end of the calendar year for 2024, how would you say what we're seeing in front of us is pretty much standard per quarter? Does it be about 12 or 13 items per quarter?
I think so. I can double check. There could be some seasonality to it too. And to your point, this is on a calendar basis. We start our new year in July, so July might be a little bit heavier after everybody receives their new budget. So I could see how it trended for this past calendar year.
Yeah, that would be helpful because this in 2024 was the first time we started tracking
Mhm.
these contracts this way. So and that can be, you know, and after this meeting, additional piece of information, how many contracts were handled and the total dollar amount.
Okay.
So that we can share this with the overall council for awareness, because you know, the result of what we're doing and seeing right now is a result of the change in the charter.
That is correct.
So we just want to share with them, okay, as a result of that change, X number of items were handled through the purchasing agent's office, and this is the total dollar amount.
Yep, not a
Great.
problem.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, I just had an explanation. When I'm looking at the two, I think it's the fourth and fifth from the top, which is the dump bodies and dump trucks for
Yep.
DPW. And they look like they're exactly the same amount and they're the same
Yeah.
contract numbers. Is there any reason why
Actually, it is.
they're not combined?
No, it actually is a duplicate. This is done manually.
And the same thing down below for Tasca Ford. You've got the same, it looks, again, it's duplicates as well.
Yeah, I guess it's not a good quarter for me to report on this one. Okay.
Sure. Oh my goodness.
Finally, an
as you
honest
can tell,
person. No,
like
but
like
the-
everybody, I have a cold, so when the report was done, I was trying to get it done quickly. So I will get it corrected and restate it.
I'm
Right,
sorry, I'm
right.
sorry, I'm
No
sorry.
No, I'm glad you looked. I
This-
appreciate the detailed eyes.
This would be a good month to change the E to an O.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's Connors with an E who did
Oh,
that.
that's Gary with the O that reported. That's why. Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, yes, not a problem. I will send a corrected
Well, looks a lot better
statement.
now.
Yeah. And
I think we're down to 5.
while
Exactly.
while we're on the topic of looking at the numbers, the first one, 21,000.
Yeah,
I thought 25 was the cutoff.
it is 25. So when it went out to bid, at thinking, so the new threshold with our purchasing guideline is 25K. So MPT thought we would be budgeting around, 25, 30K for these exams. I did include it in there because the purchasing department did put it out in public solicitation, thinking it was going to come in above the threshold, and resulting in the public solicitation, we got a bid in 21K. So
Okay.
I did include it, even though it was under the threshold, because that's the positive of having a public solicitation. It can come under what you had budgeted.
Not to,
Competition.
not to pile on here, but it isn't 9:30, the quarter ended September 30th? No, it's September 1st. No. Or it's the quarter is
Yeah.
September 1st through September, October, November, December. No, that's the end of the first quarter. Fiscal quarter is 9:30. So that should be in the previous report, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just messed this all up.
This was not a good month.
Darn holidays.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you pay attention. I appreciate it.
All right.
Jim, I think you're just showing off. I don't know. Mathiness.
So we will have a do-over of this report.
We will.
But thank you.
Karen
Sharon,
will never
for the
talk to me
track.
again, too.
Yeah. Thank you for the continued tracking of this. And again, if, we'll get this report that's in front of us updated, and then we'll also get the overall calendar year
Mhm.
number in terms of the number of solicitations and the total annual amount that was covered, and that will be appreciated.
Not a problem.
Great. Okay, any other
Okay.
questions for Sharon?
None from me.
Yeah, I hope not.
You sure,
I like
Jim?
the
You want to Jim? You want to take one final look?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go move on, move on, move on.
yeah, move on quickly. Okay, great. Thank you,
No,
Sharon.
I do appreciate it, and thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 6. We have nothing listed under old business, but I did want to mention and remind the committee that the joint meeting with the Board of Education Finance Committee and this committee will take place on Wednesday, January 22nd, beginning at 6:00 p.m. It will be a hybrid meeting. However, the members of the Finance Committee are encouraged to try to attend in the council chambers if at all possible. If not, please dial in. Again, it'll be a hybrid meeting, and we'll be reviewing the we'll talk about the budget, and from the Board of Ed side, we'll be looking at the approved budget from the Board of Education and not just the recommended budget submitted by the superintendent. The Board of Education will be voting on their budget submittal next week. So on the 22nd, we'll be looking at the actually voted on budget. Anne, you had a question?
I just wanted to clarify that the in-person part is, I believe it's going to be in the community room, not the chambers, because the BOE is going to be attending. Am I incorrect?
I will get an update on that, unless Chitsime, do you by any chance know what we booked?
It's going to be in the chambers. This is Jared.
Okay.
It's
Thank
going to
you.
be in the council chambers. Yeah. Yeah, I met with Lunda today, and we confirmed the meeting place.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Okay. That was just for information. So let's move on to new business. Item A, we have item A1 and A2, and we'll take them separately. Item A1 reads as follows: recommend the allocation of $2,450,000 in special capital appropriation funds to the Recreation and Parks Department for the development and construction of the Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Jim Freya, thank you. And we have with us Alan Lowe from Building Management and Robert Sowers, our Director of Park and Recreation, to walk us through this item.
Good evening. Maybe I should be like Sharon, maybe change my name first, it'd be easier that way. I don't think it changed Lowe too much anyway.
You want to change the O to an E before you start?
A vow's a vow. You want to buy a vow, go right ahead. Maybe for just in case there's a member of public at this meeting listening on, I just want to go really quick over the history. I assume the Common Council members are familiar with this project because it's been to Common Council many times for different reasons. Basically, this is the old South Norwalk Community Center. It was built in 1983. In fact, I actually built it back then. And back in 2012, as you know, Neon moved on. And the city always owned 50% of the property, and with their departure, the city actually put money in and acquired the other half of the property financially. So since then, the city owns the property 100%, and we do not have any really tenants in there except Americare in there for the last few years, but they generally speaking have moved out already. Back before COVID, we actually went out for RFP for development of the building for a recreation community center kind of thing. And we received a proposal from YMCA back part like 2019 or so kind of thing. And we've been working with them to negotiate a project and costs for development of it, and a long-term lease to them. We went through a couple of years of negotiations, and then as we go through COVID years, then the construction costs got really a little bit crazy kind of thing. I don't think that's the right word, but and at some point the YMCA decided that financially it doesn't work for them, so they move on. And from then on, the city, the administration look for ways to do this, and the goal is still to do a community recreation center. So from there, we're talking to Robert. Robert's here tonight also. Robert's office developed a whole program for the building, and me and him worked together, and we actually looked at the design of the building, and we decided to completely renovate the existing building, add a gym to the back of the building. And we came up, going through the design phases, we came out with a budget. If you see the backup memo, this project right now is funded by multiple funding sources. There's $1.2 million worth of CDBG money. No, I'm sorry, it's $1.2 million of DEC, State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Development money, $1.2 million. There's $2 million of HUD money, federal dollars. The city also put in $1.5 million from the what we call the mall fund, the GGP fund. When the private sector developed the mall, the city obtained some money from them. So we used about $1.5 million, about $250,000-$300,000 was used to acquire the property. So we have a balance of about 1.2 left, I think, from that account. The biggest part is actually from ARPA money. Right now, we have about $6 million invested into this project, put into this project. And recently, the past capital budget, I think we allocated $2.5 million to this. I think it's 2.5. I don't think it's 3.5. I gotta look it up. And then, so the total, it's like $13 million. Thank you. So it's all in my backup memos, the detail. I don't have the memo in front of me, so I'm not reading it right now. Generally speaking, so it's multiple funding to put together for this project. And because of ARPA money, there's a requirement that we commit the money before end of last year, end of December, couple 2 weeks ago. So what we did was went through a really a quick process to design the building, and went out to bid back in October or so, October, November. And because recently the construction market is really a contractor's market, the number is very unpredictable. So the number came in much higher than what our cost estimate was. And our construction manager, Newfield Construction, they have done a number of projects for us. And the numbers for all these projects are very accurate, but because the economy, the way the market is, attracting bidders and good competitive pricing is very difficult. Newfield Construction has done Pona School for us, Jefferson School, recently Cranberry School. So all those projects came in within budget and everything else. And this one, again, it's really a market condition and the construction industry issues. The bids came very high. So they came about over $3 million higher than our budget estimates. So since the bid opening, we actually sat down, we've gone through a process called value engineering. So we look at all the different trade packages, and we identify our goal is to identify about $1.3 million worth of savings, reductions, and we came out to be $1.1 million. So even with that $1.1 million reduction, we're still short around $2,450,000. So what's in front of you tonight, I'm sorry, just one other thing is that back in early December, first meeting of Common Council in December, we actually went through a partial GMP, guaranteed maximum price approval by the Common Council. So we actually approved some of these bid packages so that we can lock in the ARPA money last month. So so that the ARPA money did not expire. And then we went through this value engineering. We scoped the project somewhat, and we were able to bring it down by $1.1 million, and hence we short about $2.45 million. So that's what's in front of you tonight. On Monday night, we went to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, and they recommended approval of this. Last night, we went to P&C Commission. They also recommended the approval of this, and we're here tonight to discuss and requesting this committee's approval. Subject to your approval, it will go to Common Council next Tuesday night. I think that's a quick summary of the project.
Any comments or questions related to this special capital appropriation? Just for the public, as well as those that might be new to the committee, where is the capital appropriation coming from?
Where is it coming from?
Right. So is this coming out of contingency? Is it coming out of the rainy day fund?
It's neither. Jared is here, but Jared speaking, it doesn't. It's really what happened is we've recently finished Cranberry School. There's a residual fund in that account. So typically, when for all these years I worked for city, when there's occasion when we need a special appropriation, the finance committee, finance department always asks about where we can find existing project that we can close out. So in that way, we don't have to add additional debt to the city. So as part of that process, I look at the project that we have, and Cranberry School, since it's finished, and we look at the funding free balance available, and coincidentally, there's about $2.45 million left in that account. So it's not additional debt to the city. It's just not shifting money. That doesn't sound right, but we are closing one project and using that allowance in our capital debt to cover this project.
And yes, and thank you for that. I understand that. I'm asking the question because if we did not have the funding freed up from the Cranberry School project, and the only resources we had were to ask for a special capital appropriation, what's the mechanism in terms of securing those funds? Is that additional bonding that we need to do, or?
No.
So I'm just looking to provide clarity for those that may not know.
Greg, I'll follow up on what Alan was saying. And so in terms of that, we've already the approval for Cranberry has already been done for a while. The approval for that money, both the appropriation and for the bonding to be done, and so that the bonds for that school have also been issued. So we have the cash, we have the bond proceeds in our account now. And so effectively what we're saying is that those bond proceeds will be repurposed and to be used for the community center instead. And I'm glad you asked this question, because I was going to follow up and let you know that we will be, this is more of a technical thing, but and we did this about 5 or 6 months ago with the high school project. We'll follow up with another resolution because we need to do this for purposes of the bond covenants and the bond issuance, because the bonds were originally issued under the premise of the Cranberry School, that project being done. We will need to do another resolution that reallocates those bond proceeds. So the CAT reallocates the bond proceeds to this project from Cranberry School.
Great. If you could just take it, Jared, a step further, what would the process be if we did not have the freed up funds from Cranberry and we still needed this allocation?
Yep. So if we didn't do that, there would be a special appropriation and there would be a bond authorization. And so in that case, in that situation, we would we would do those two things. There would be two resolutions. There'd be the bond authorization, as well as the special appropriation. And then it would kind of happen in reverse. And this is not uncommon when you have an unanticipated capital project that has to take place, where we actually do we may spend the money on the project before we issue the bonds. And so we would actually do those two resolutions, and then come August, September, whenever we do the bond issuance, that money would be part of that bond issuance.
Great, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yes, Alan?
Just last piece is that, subject to common council approval next week. And the law department will work with the contractor to execute a GMP amendment. The project is scheduled to start first or second week of February. It's going to take us about a year to finish the project too. So opening will be sometime in January, February of 2026. That's it. Thank you.
Right. Do we have any further questions on item A1? Okay, hearing seen none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, show by a raise of hand. And it is unanimous. Okay, thank you. And we'll have a vote on item A2, which reads as follows: recommend the reduction of $2,450,000 from free balance in the Cranberry School Improvement Project capital budget account number noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. I think we just went through the narrative on this, but if anyone has any additional questions, we can entertain them. Okay, hearing seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this recommendation, show by a raise of hand. And it is also unanimous. Okay, great, thank you. So both of these items will proceed forward to the full Common Council for review and approval at the Tuesday, January 14th meeting. Okay, great, thank you. Just before we close, Robert, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, or are you all set?
Yeah, I think I'm all set. I just appreciate the council and these committees that have listened closely to us over the last couple of years, and you're going to have a tremendous asset added to the city that families and kids will enjoy, and hopefully down the road we'll get another one of these community centers, because one is not enough for a city the size of 100,000 people. We're going to go into the facility, however, as we go along. In terms of our operating, we will have about 6 months. As Alan says, it will open around February of 2026. So we'll have about 5 months of dollars to get us through that first 6 months, and then we will, of course, bring another financial request to the 2027 budget. But we have a manager of the facility in this current proposed budget, and we have some part-time money and some instructor money for instructors. But there will be another request 2027 as we go into the facility. We're going to have to use a lot of our staff, our existing staff down there, in and out. But I think we have enough resources to make it. Alan, he has put aside enough money in furniture flooring and equipment to get us the equipment and the furnishings we need. So I think we're pretty well set. You know, I've managed the whole recreation department in Seattle, where we have 37 community centers, and I have overseen the building of and implementation of about 7 of them. So anyway, I feel really good. I feel good about the direction which we're going, and I just appreciate everyone, and I just thank the committee tonight for approving this.
Great, thank you. Everyone is anxiously awaiting this great project and to see the building, the structure go up and the benefit it'll bring to the community. So we're fully behind it. Okay, moving on to item B, which reads as follows: authorize the mayor to enter into a 5-year purchase agreement with Total Communications, Inc. for Cisco ISC licenses with a total cost not to exceed $44,748, and the city account number is noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Heather Dunn, thank you. And we have Joyce Liu, our IT director. Happy New Year, Joyce.
New Year.
To bring this request forward.
Thank you, Chairman Burnett. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me today. This agenda item is part of the IT department's cybersecurity plan to improve our network monitoring. Cisco ISE is short for Identity Service Engine. It is a network security tool that ensures only the trusted user and devices can access our network. So it's acting like a digital security guard, verify who and what is trying to connect in our network. So once the access is granted, it also control what they can do on our network. For example, bring your own device guests at the City Hall might only be granted with internet access, and while employee could access internal system and data on our network. So Cisco ISE also help ensure that all devices are secure before they join the network. So that preventing security threats such as hackers and malware from exploiting the vulnerability. So this tool is really crucial for the IT team to effectively managing our network security. I'm here glad to answer any question you have.
Do we have any questions for Joyce? I just had one question for a clarity question. In the backup, I saw 2 numbers. I saw the 44,748, but I also saw the 65,582.02 number.
Yes. Yes.
Why the difference?
Yep. So this is we got this quote from a state contract, and on the state contract it required 2 vendors to answering, for the quote we request. So one is Total Gov Gov Connection, another one is actually one is Total Communication, another one is EE Plus. So it's the same product, but they quote it differently. So we choose the lower one, that to present to do the purchase. And we also go for 5 years because once you have the network monitoring, we have the brand new Cisco switches and network, and in the next 5-10 years we are not going away from Cisco. So that's the 5 year is the best deal for us to go get the best quote from the vendor.
Okay, thank you. And one follow-up question. This obviously is for the city side. What is the partnership from a support standpoint with the Board of Education? Are they using the same product, a different product, or?
No, they are not using they are not using the same product. Because we are on a separate network. So what we are doing is, city is covering all different kind of 14 locations. We cover library, we cover health department, we cover police and all the fire, fire station. So we are on a totally separate network.
Okay. Councilmember Jim Freya and then Councilmember Heather Dunn.
Now, go ahead, yeah, Heather
Yeah,
Dunn.
my question was, so is this per year for 5 years, or is this encompass the 5-year?
It is a 5-year contract for, so it's a total for 5 years. So average out every year probably is around and less than $10,000, $8,000 a year.
You all said, Heather? Okay, great. Jim?
No, I'm okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other comments or questions related to this authorization? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this authorization show by a raise of hand. And it is unanimous. Great. So Joyce will bring this forward to the full Common Council for review and approval for next Tuesday, January 14th at the Common Council meeting.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Okay, you too.
Thanks, Joyce.
That completes our agenda. Motion to adjourn. Council Member Heather Dunn, thank you. All those in favor show by raise of hand, and we stand adjourned. Great. Have a great rest of the evening and enjoy.
Have a nice weekend, everybody.